Yep. Let's have to check. They should put it in front and back so you can see.
The fireman here tonight, so.
See that?
What's that? My eyes are failing.
That's good. My wife, she
Good evening, everyone. It is 7 o'clock. Thank you so much for being here. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I would like to make two announcements this evening. The mayor and council met in executive session on November 14th and November 17th to discuss personnel matters pursuant to the Sunshine Act.
Next on the agenda is the section for presentations. It is truly an honor to give this presentation this evening. I met Mr. Bill Neal probably maybe a decade ago now, it feels. And he is certainly a wonderful human being. And having said that, on behalf of the entire municipality of Penn Hills and council, I would ask Mr. Neal to please come forward to receive this proclamation.
All of us.
Oh, doesn't this work? Oh, would you prefer to do that? Sorry about that, a little technical glitch. The municipality of Penn Hills presents this proclamation, whereas Bill Neal founded Champion Enterprises in 1975, and Achieving Greatness, Incorporated in 2010, in order to provide educational, recreational, employment, and social programs to residents of Penn Hills and Allegheny County. And whereas Bill Neal has spent decades working to keep young people off the streets and on the right path with sports programs, classes, and mentoring efforts throughout the region. And whereas Champion Enterprises has reached over 250,000 young people through lectures and clinics and has helped so many of our area's young people get into college. And whereas Bill Neal has been recognized for his community service by being honored with the KDKA Hometown Hero Award, the Jefferson Award, and the United States Air Force National Community Service Award. And whereas for his service to our area's youth people succeed in life, Bill Neal deserves our recognition and acknowledgement. Now therefore, be it resolved that I, Pauline Calabrese, do hereby proclaim Tuesday, November 22nd, 2022, as Bill Neal Day in the municipality of Penn Hills.
I'd like to take this opportunity to sincerely thank the mayor, Penn Hills Council, for this recognition. And I immediately want to thank my friends and colleagues who are here on my behalf this evening. The first thing it's important for me to do, since I recognize some of the gray hairs in this room, is to acknowledge that I come from the family of Robert Gore, who helped build homes in Penn Hills over 100 years ago. So we are original Penn Hills folks and have been here for quite some time. And I'm a proud graduate of Penn Hills High School and a proud member of the Penn Hills Sports Hall of Fame. And hopefully some of you guys remember me from my football days, but if you've forgotten me, I clearly understand. I wasn't really that great. Nonetheless, I was inducted into the Hall of Fame a few years ago, and at that time I was reminded of how great Penn Hills has been and continues to be. And my acknowledgement to the mayor, to the council, and especially I did speak to numerous police officers in Penn Hills over the years, and what a tremendous job they're doing, and not only doing their job, but connecting with a lot of the young people and some of the groups in the city. In the township. The other thing I'd like to make mention of is that we've been working very closely with the high school and the athletic director there. Stephanie and I have been connected for a couple years, and I'm proud to announce that another group that I am a member of, the Pittsburgh Corvette Club, will be presenting the boys and girls basketball teams at Penn Hills with brand new tennis shoes for this basketball season. So that is no small task, to be sure, given what Michael Jordan has done for the price of tennis shoes. But that being said, in the next couple of weeks, we will present all the boys and all the girls on both teams brand new shoes right before Christmas. And as I've said to just about anybody that'll listen to me, I've been involved in programs and community programming for young people. This is my 48th year, and it feels like yesterday. And I am extremely proud to have been a part of many things that hopefully a few of which you remember or recognize: the Connie Hawkins Summer Basketball League, the Franco Harris Football Camp, the Willie Starger Awards Banquet. We now embark on the Pittsburgh City League High School Hall of Fame induction. So we've been around the block and we've done a lot of things, but more than anything, I've never, ever forgotten where my roots are and where I've come from and the time I've spent in Penn Hills. And as some of you older guys know, and my friend Tim will tell you, how many times I ran that heel off the football field. If you remember, Andy Urbanik had a very simple rule: if you want to go home, get up that hill. Thank you.
Roll call, please.
Mayor Calabrese,
Present.
Councilor Fascio,
Present.
Councilman Brodnicki,
Here.
Councilwoman Sapp, Deputy Mayor Pecora.
May I get a motion for the approval of the October 17th, 2022 minutes?
Mayor Calabrese,
Yes, Councilman Brodnicki.
I'd like to make a motion, we approve the minutes of October 17th, 2022.
Thank you. May I get a second?
Second.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Roll call, please.
Counselor Fascio,
Yes.
Councilman Brodnicki,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Pecora,
Yes.
Mayor Calabrese.
Yes.
Minutes approved.
Item number 6, may I get a motion for ratification of the expenditures?
Mayor,
Yes, Councilwoman Fascio.
I'd like to make a motion to ratify expenditures in the total of $3,149,491.55.
Thank you. May I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any public comment? Any comment from council? Roll call, please.
Councilman Brodnicki,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Pecora,
Yes.
Mayor Calabrese,
Yes.
Counselor Fascio.
Yes.
Item number 7, we will move to the first budget hearing for the 2023 budget.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening. On the 31st of October, we published next year's operating budget. It's available online. It's also available down here at the municipal building for those that want to see it. The purpose of my presentation is to give you sort of a high-level overview of our spending plan next year, focusing in particular on highlights of our budget and important projects that we want to bring to your attention. So just very quickly, I'll move through the materials quickly as I can. This slide, I think, encapsulates a lot of the challenges that we faced going into next year. Certainly, we all know that there's a lot of inflationary pressures, especially in areas of fuel prices. That was something that we had to factor in as we made our spending plan. Also, as you know, there are wage pressures. We're actually having difficulty in some cases attracting personnel only because of the fact that wages are rising in other industries and sectors. So also, as you can see, healthcare costs went up a little high for us next year, 9%. We're dealing with that as best we can to try to get some concessions from some of our employees as to how that's paid for. But on the left, you could really see a lot of the challenges that we did have. One of which is just the delays in the delivery of goods and services. It becomes complicated when you place orders for equipment or vehicles and you still haven't had them, and now you're a year or two behind, and a lot of the times those are grant funded. It can get rather complicated. So just the number of delays that we saw, I think, made a particularly challenging year. And on the right hand, there was a lot of things that made it, there were positive things in our budget, one of which is obviously next year is when we're going to see the remaining stimulus spent out of our budget. That certainly helped our budget as well. We saw earlier this year when the mayor and council approved an option year with Republic, there wasn't a real big increase in that. So at least for next year, we don't have a really big waste hauling increase, which a lot of folks, including myself, expected. Also, not a big increase in our contributions to what we pay into the employees' defined benefit pension plan. So those sometimes can be very big costs. Those actually did not increase, so that actually helped our budget. And also, on a very positive note, a lot of the key revenues in Penn Hills have actually been up in the last few years. Our real estate tax collections have been up. That's due to a number of factors. Also, the wage tax the revenue that we get from the wage taxes, a percentage of everyone's earned income that gets paid in the form of taxes, that's actually been increasing the last few years, along with deed transfer taxes. There's been a lot of sales of property. So there's been a lot of economic activity in Penn Hills, which has kind of helped our budget, that actually helped offset a lot of those negative sort of pressures that we have in order to make a spending plan. This next slide really shows where our revenues originate from for the general fund. And really, as you can see, there's two big ones. The first being real estate taxes. It's about 30% of where every dollar that we spend out of the general fund comes from. And actually the biggest is what we call Act 511 taxes, but Act 511 taxes include earned income taxes. So Act 511 taxes really are the wage taxes. So, between real estate taxes and wage taxes, that really comprises perhaps probably 75% of our budget, and then you could see, what's left, that other 25% there. Some of it comes in the form of grants and state aid. For instance, this pie chart shows that there's 14% of our general fund revenue comes from state aid and grants. Well, that's true, but it's for a specific purpose, right? So usually when you get money from the state or a grant, it goes right back out the door for a specific purpose. But you can see that the majority of our funding in our general fund comes really from those two categories. And with that money, we, as an organization, we have to spread those dollars out among a variety of services, the largest of which are shown here. And unsurprisingly, our police department is our biggest department. Typically, you'll, at least in Pennsylvania, usually police departments are between 20 and 30% of a municipal operating budget. Ours is about 25%, so actually we're in the right direction on that. But I think if you look at just the costs that we have, we are using the resources as wisely as we can. I mean, even if you just look at this chart and you think, well, only 2% of our budget goes towards operating our senior center. And I mean, I think anybody that visits there knows that there's a lot of services that they do. So even with some of these smaller departments, to be able to use those dollars wisely, and also fire. I mean, if you look at the percentage of our budget that's dedicated towards providing fire services directly in the form of our cash contributions, I think everyone would agree we're getting a lot for our money in terms of a lot of the services that we do provide. All of this is available in greater detail. It's online as well if anybody has any interest in it. So I wanted to just spend a few minutes to talk a little bit about the stimulus and what's happened with it since we started to incorporate it into our budget back in 2021. The first thing that we did in 22 with the stimulus was we were able to take a $10 million reimbursement from that in the form of a public safety wage reimbursement. That was what was recommended by our auditors. That was what they consider a standard allotment. So for most places that got the stimulus money, the American Rescue Funds, they basically did the same thing. They took that first $10 million and they reimbursed themselves for all of their police, EMS, public safety wages. And in so doing that, it actually allowed the municipality to spend that money a little more flexibly. And so one of the first things that we focused on working with the mayor and council was to focus on our first responders. So this slide just gives you a little bit of an idea of the ways in which we did spend the money that we took in as the public safety reimbursement. We were able to add additional police officers in 2022. Those are still budgeted next year for 2023. We actually, perhaps because we did improve the roster and increase the roster, we're looking in 2022 to see maybe less overtime in the police department spent for the first time in a while. So that, I think, has to do with the fact that we did improve staffing and did get back to a full roster. Also, we made investments in vehicles and equipment, as you could see, in both the police department and the fire department as well. We also, in 22, granted more money to the fire departments, all 6 of them, for the services that they provide, along with a lot of equipment in the EMS division as well. Anyone that comes to these meetings on any regular basis knows that on a monthly basis we are approving a lot of contracts. So we've been somewhat on a spending spree in Penn Hills, if you will, because when we got the stimulus in 21, we started to have, we had a lot of plans in place already, but really in 22, we did do a lot of spending with the stimulus. These are just highlights of projects that we have completed in Penn Hills, really since really in 22 and 23. There's too many projects to really go through in the amount of time that I have here, but what the mayor and council and the staff attempted to do was cover as many areas of our budget and our services that we could with the stimulus as we could, to try to take the stimulus dollars and spread them over a variety of areas. And as you can see here, I mean, this is just a portion of some of the projects that we were either completing or will complete in 23 for Parks and Recreation. I mean, you could read that for yourself. I don't need to read it to you. But all of these things are the ways in which we were able to use the stimulus in 22 and again in 23 to provide the level of services that we all have come to expect. There's projects on here that a lot of people may not know that we undertook in 22, but these are very worthwhile projects. And it continues on with other things. If you live in Penn Hills, and I'm assuming that you all do, you know that we've been paving a lot of roads in Penn Hills. We've been very fortunate. We were able to secure a lot of state grants through the help of our legislative team, our delegation, and working with our staff here. So we're now, we're wrapping up Multimodal 1, which is a $3 million grant. I think we're wrapping that up this year. And then we're beginning Multimodal 2, and we have an application in for Multimodal 3. So all of that paving, a lot of those projects that we did, we were able to do that because of the fact that we were using the stimulus as cash match. A lot of what you see here, like on this list, these are applications that we sought out in order to try to get projects done. This is just a sampling of some of it, but just in terms of some of the applications that we're applying for. For instance, the first one, federal transportation application. We asked for money for Road I Road. The match for that would be stimulus. So in addition to, it isn't just, spending stimulus dollars, it was trying to leverage the dollars that we had to get other grants to try to complete more projects, if you will. And we heard from a lot of people. Part of the process was to hear from the public about projects that they wanted to hear. But again, trying to cover as many bases as we could. In economic development, we were able to do initiate some demolitions with that money as well. So there's really been no shortage of projects that we attempted to do with the stimulus, really trying to cover as much as we could. And I neglected to have sanitary sewer projects, but I mean, there are so many. I mean, everyone knows that there are quite a bit of sanitary sewer projects we approve on a monthly basis. A lot of those projects were completed as well. So, we were able to complete a lot of projects in 22 and more in 23. But I did want to, in a few minutes that I have remaining, and I don't want to take up too much time, but one thing I did really want to stress to people here is sort of what was happening in Penn Hills financially speaking up until we got the stimulus, and there were some changes in the direction we were heading. But back in 2019 and 2020, we had this discussion in this room when we said that basically Penn Hills was operating on borrowed time because it was spending down its fund balance. So this chart I really kind of like, and it's what I'm going to call the partially hypothetical general fund balance. I say partially hypothetical because everything in that box is actually what happened. If you look at the years between 2013 and 2020, that was the general fund balance for Penn Hills. So, we basically went from a $7 million, and this is for a very large suburb, to have a fund balance that was now, you're probably hovering around $3 million back then, but it went from about $7 million down to about $3 million in those years. And I don't know that there was such a plan necessarily to do anything about that. But so when you look at what happened between 2013 and 2020, quite frankly, I don't know that you have to necessarily guess at what would have happened in 21, 22, and 23. And honestly, those aren't really guesses, because Sherry and I were able to say, well, if things continue the way they do, when we looked at this in 2021 and 2020, we said, well, if things continue the way that they do, what's going to happen? And I could tell you what was going to happen. Penn Hills was going to have a problem. Penn Hills was going to have a financial problem, and I think at that point we would probably be here tonight talking about some other things other than what we're actually talking about. But we probably definitely would by now have cash flow issues, and we would be looking at ways to reduce services. Fortunately, that's not what happened. That's not what happened because of in large part because of the stimulus. So that graph shows really where we were supposed to we weren't destined to be there clearly, but we're on the road to I think financial distress and probably Act 47, quite frankly. But in reality, this is where we ended up. If you look at what we were able to accomplish since 2021, in addition to all the projects that we just listed, all the projects that we were able to use the stimulus for to complete all those projects, we are also able to plan for sort of the rebuilding of our financial position at Penn Hills. Because really, the position that we had really wasn't that great. And so if the mayor and council had maybe spent all that stimulus, or if we had done every project, there was no shortage of projects that the mayor and council heard from people on. All of them were very worthwhile and worthy, but if we had done all the projects that maybe people wanted, we wouldn't have the $18 million and we wouldn't have this, which, to tell you the truth, is a much stronger position than we had prior to the stimulus, and that's just another way to look at it. But you don't have to take my word for it. I know that the way that the stimulus was programmed and the way we made our budgets, I do feel that we were good stewards of the public's finances, but people don't realize that because of the way that we did manage those funds, Penn Hills had its credit rating upgraded. Our outlook, the people that make these decisions at Standard & Poor's, it's a rating agency. So it's a rating agency that sort of decides how much money to lend and at what cost. So based on the position that we're in, S&P actually moved Penn Hills to a stable outlook. We were at AAA rated. Our bond rating was A+ rated, but our outlook was negative. Our outlook was negative because anyone could see in the public financial statements that basically the fund balance was being spent down. So you could read what they have to say about it. They basically said that Penn Hills, and this is in their words, it's quoted, we returned to balanced general fund operations and we've stabilized our finances. That's part of what we used the stimulus to do. That was the point of it. It was called the American Rescue Fund. And it was supposed to rescue organizations like ours, and it really actually did. But in addition to strengthening our position, we were also able to do all those other projects. And so they say right there, our position is very strong in our view. It's not my view, it's my view too, but it's their view at the ratings agency. But they made clear that they could change that if we deplete our cash position. So it's, I think, really important for everyone to see, what happened in the last 2 years. It kind of went by very quickly, and the stimulus was announced in 20, and we started to spend it in 21 and in 22. A lot of the projects are still in the works. There's projects and products that have been ordered, but they're just not, they're not completed yet because of a lot of the deliveries and delays. But I did want to point out to everybody that this is good news for everybody in Penn Hills. And it isn't because of me, and it isn't necessarily because of the staff. It's because of everybody working as a team. Because the reality of it is, where we are at now as an organization it didn't have to necessarily be that way. The stimulus could have been spent on a number of projects or on one big project or what have you. So I'm happy with the position that we're in. That's all good news. Don't want to take up a whole lot of time. Again, this is all online for you to peruse. This is just a slide on code enforcement. That's a topic that we hear a lot from people about, from residents, rightly so. What we're doing with staffing there. We've been up staffing in code for the last few years. I think we've had a lot of big improvements in 2022 with just the clearing the caseload and the complaints, and I think 23 is probably going to be even better than 22. But all of this is online, available for you to take a look at if you like. But those are just the highlights of next year's plan and sort of our overall financial position that we have now today. So.
Before we move to public comment, can I say one thing? I'd like to put this in language that I understand as the mother of 5, and I always translate this into my household budget. What I read all these pie charts saying is, it's kind of like we were living paycheck to paycheck, and then our rich old aunt gave us some money, and we didn't go out and blow that money, but we were in prior years, prior administrations, they were going into the savings account and spending, and they weren't even making paycheck to paycheck. They were living off of savings. This is a big woo-hoo because this is awesome. When we got the credit rating, it's like, imagine if you had a really bad credit score and all of a sudden your FICO went way up. This is really, really good news. So we'll move to the comments or questions, but let me just say traditionally and typically what happens is when you come forward with questions or comments, if it looks like we're just sitting here blankly listening to you, what we're doing is we're going to write those down, and so that we're not asking the finance director to just speak off the cuff. Typically what will happen is those questions will be answered at the next meeting. I mean, if it's some quick question that's a real easy answer, we can do that, but typically that's something that's going to come at the next hearing.
For the budget hearing, you want to address council? Okay, all you have to do is state your, if you could just state your name and address for our minutes. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Jan Kukuchka. I live at 145 Sycamore Drive. And I'm the park chairman for the Crescent Hills Civic Association's Crescent Hills Park. This is a park that's at 141 Sycamore Drive, so I'm blessed to live right next to the park. That has a lot of advantages and some responsibilities. At the September 2021 municipal meeting, a proposed plan was presented by the manager that was subsequently adopted by council. This has to do with the stimulus funds. This plan included $175,000 in stimulus funds targeted for community parks because parks were considered eligible under the program, because parks were outdoors, were safe havens, were heavily used during the pandemic, and so received extra wear and tear. And Crescent Hills Park was one of those identified as one of 4 eligible community parks. Although the Crescent Hills Park is owned by the Civic Association, many Penn Hills people use the park. Some of the ways this park was helpful and used during the pandemic was that it provided a weekly children's reading program complete with crafts and books, attended by about 30 people each week. Our court field and walking trail were used daily. It was a good place for people to go to be among others, but not too close. We have the only tennis court in Penn Hills, and the Penn Hills High School tennis team uses our court as practice. It costs $7,000 a year to maintain this, between taxes, landscaping that we pay others to do, and lots of expenses. That's how much it costs a year. We submitted, at the request of council, a proposal for how we could be included in stimulus money. But Crescent Hills Park hasn't received any money for 2022, and I see no stimulus money shown in this budget for parks. And I'm wondering what the reason is for this lack of budgeting for community parks, and is this an oversight?
I can tell you, no, it's not. We're waiting to make those awards. Those awards we're being, we have that money in '22, but we have not made the awards yet. That's something that we have to do. But that money is in '22 because there's other playgrounds that are included with that. But those are awards that are yet to be made. We're hoping to do it soon.
So it is included in this budget?
It's included in '22, yeah. That money was never taken out. There was other playground money, too, for Ross Park was included with that, in Lincoln Park, and I think the playground at McKinley as well. So that playground money, we just have not made those awards yet, but they are coming.
Okay, thank you.
It hasn't been distributed
Just hasn't
yet.
been distributed
It just
yet.
hasn't been distributed yet.
Okay,
We're a little behind, and that's kind of what I was alluding to, is that, you know, to spend a lot, I mean, to spend all the money that was spent in 1 year to try to do all those projects, and then there's delays on top of delays. So some of those projects didn't get done maybe in the time frame that we wanted to, but that money's still coming.
Let me just give another example, too. So, for example, we have the, $3 million, then an additional $2 million for paving. We have a list, but they just can't do it all at one time, right? So they're checking off each paving project at a time. So it's sort of like it's in the chute, it just has to trickle down yet. But it's
Okay.
accounted for.
well, we don't want to act like a petulant child saying, "You promised," but we want to be included. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, of course.
Good evening, Your Honor and Counsel. Greg Swatchik, 648 Gramick Lane. Just quickly, what I noticed was basically that all of the employees are getting, I don't want to use a wrong number, 2 to 3.5% increase in salaries. And I'm not going to pass judgment on that. We have inflation, and, probably a lot of people are doing that in all businesses. But what I did notice as a variation in that global, characterization is that the mayor and council and the controller number stayed the same, be it 4,800, 3,600, and 4,200 respectively. So we had increases across the board. Mayor, council, and controller stayed the same. And the only outlier to those, I saw the chief of police is going down. And I don't know if there's any comment that can be made as to why. If I was to speculate, we have a new chief of police, Chief Como, and maybe, the salary of the outgoing chief, because of his longevity here, was at a pretty high ceiling. But, let's not forget our chief, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. So maybe somebody can comment on that unless it's a personnel matter, and technically we can't know. I don't know those rules. The other thing is, and I want to preface this, I know the manager has been very, very busy. I think you just gave an excellent presentation on the budget. And you had a nice, you're welcome, and you had a nice analogy yourself at the end. saying it a different way. But just to be quick, short, to the point on two things, and we can address this later and at his time. In the July council meeting, when I tried to talk about the boundary with now Churchill and Penn Hills and Wilkins, where it all coincides around Rodi Road, just because of the tree planting, which, you know, that it's beautiful at Penn Hill Shopping Center. So far, I hope it just keeps going. It's an excellent project. But, you know, it sort of resurrects that boundary line that was resolved up to Rodi Road from Monroeville. So when I brought that up, he said, quote, "I will look into that."
Is this I'm sorry, Mr. Swajek, is this a comment on the budget, or is this your public comments? Because what we're doing now is taking comments on the budget.
You're right, I'm sorry. I have
That's okay.
conflated my notes. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
That's all I had on the budget.
You can bring that up. You can bring it up again when we move to the next item, though.
I appreciate that.
Thank you.
I'm out of line there, sorry.
Bill Mouch, 1335 Maple Avenue. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for the great presentation. I'm smiling so much, I think my face is going to crack. Is it too soon to ask for a tax decrease in our real estate taxes? Thank you.
Hey, we live here too. We'd love that.
Faith Malazzo, 121 Castle Drive. I also want to commend Scott and everyone for the budget. It is nice to see the fund balance up. I just want to make one sort of general comment just about code. I'm glad again to see there are more code positions. One of the things, this kind of relates to the comprehensive plan, so I know it's not quite budget related, but one of the things that was mentioned about the lack of education and awareness for code. So I would say that I brought this up about a year ago. It would be great to have a meeting where people understand code. Like every year I look at how much revenue code brings in, and I always expect to see it a little higher than it is, and perhaps it will be next year. And I also understand that's a tiny, tiny portion of revenue. It's just because it is higher, it's not like it's gonna make a big deal in revenue, but I think it just speaks overall to Penn Hills people. I'm a big Penn Hills cheerleader, but we want to see properties maintained. So I think that's important. I'm hopeful with more code. Maybe the fines will go up. Not that I want people to be fined, but I want properties to look good. And the other comment that I'll make, which I pretty much make every year, is would still love to see some more garbage cans. We have litter in Penn Hills. I see that Public Works also is part of the comprehensive plan. It's talked about having to do with litter, so I really hope that it would be nice just to see some more garbage cans, just to have a slightly neater Penn Hills. That's it. Thanks.
Any further public comment? Or
Okay, moving on to the next part of the agenda is public comment from those residents that signed up a week in advance or more to address council on a non-agenda item. So when I call your name in the order that you signed up, you can come to the podium. Rebecca Fenoletto, I'm sorry if I got that wrong, Becky. Did I get it right? Did I get it right? Good, all right. And please, if you could keep your comments to 3 minutes.
I can
well.
do this in 30 seconds. So again, congratulations on the presentation and the nice fund balance. That's great. So let me tell you how I think you should spend it. I started taking the bus, and one of the things that I've noticed is that it's treacherous. So if you're on Frankstown and you're getting off of the bus, either by the funeral home or by Zion Church, there's no sidewalks. There's nowhere to get there's no safe way to get off of the bus to where you need to be, to whether it's a parked car or if you live within walking distance. There's nothing there. And with the demolition or of the parking garage that collapsed, it's even less safe. We have people walking on Frankstown Road during rush hour. It's crazy. We also don't have a park and ride. The closest one we have is Beulah Church, and even that one doesn't even have sidewalks. So people are walking in the middle of like a long road down by that crazy intersection. Again, unsafe. So what I am asking is maybe we, in the way that means you and not me, look into the feasibility of sidewalks. I mean, obviously, you can't put a sidewalk everywhere where there's a bus stop because there's a million, but that area in Frankstown Road is particularly treacherous. And if we're feeling ambitious, if we have some extra time, maybe think about a park and ride somewhere. We do have, these buses do get, what do you think, Steph? They get, my fellow bus rider, they get pretty full. So there's a lot of people that are using public transportation, and I think in this day and age, we want to encourage it for a variety of reasons. But if we have a little breathing room in our budget, I think we need to make the experience a little safer. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mary Malik.
Okay, great.
My name is Mary Beth Malik, 6481 Pukita Road.
Sure. If you could please keep your comments to 3 minutes.
Yes, I've practiced. So 33 years ago, almost to the day, my husband and I bought our house here in Penn Hills. And at that time, I'm an avid gardener, and I could plant gardens anywhere on our 5-acre property. I planted trees, shrub, tulips. Fast forward to today, I have to double fence my gardens. I have to stake and fence my trees. I can't plant certain plants. Other plants, or my shrubs, this year particularly, things are getting eaten by the deer that they've never eaten before, like Forsythia hosta roses. They even come on my front porch and eat my porch plants. We have an out-of-control deer population that's only going to get worse unless we do something about it. This is a tulip poplar tree that was 7 feet tall. I planted it 3 years ago, established roots. It was a beautiful tree. The wind that we had 3 weeks ago blew off the fencing, and this is what's left of it. It cost me $90. I've lost hundreds of dollars on my property of trees and damage. The deer are also a problem with vehicle collisions. I talked to the Penn Hills Police. They don't keep track, but in Fox Chapel, they do keep track, and before they installed their culling program, there were 120 deer vehicle collisions a year, and now they're down to 20. And State Farm estimates the damage for each one, $1,500. So that's $150,000 to people's property. And of course, we know about Lyme disease. I got Lyme disease on my property. My dog got Lyme disease. It cost me lost income and hospital stay. Also, a testing study out of the University of Pennsylvania reveals that 33% of the deer herd are carrying COVID. And the deer are starving because they don't have enough food. So we're not doing them a favor by letting them run rampant in Penn Hills. Also, they are going to destroy our parks because the native trees can't grow, so the parks are being taken over by kudzu and knotweed and invasive species. The solutions are two-pronged, non-lethal and lethal. The non-lethal, you can see on my paper here, includes sterilization through the PA Game Commission and other things you can post on your website. The lethal methods are archers and sharpshooters, and we can look to our friends across the river at Fox Chapel because their program was one of the first in the country in the 1990s. And like I said, the car collisions are way down. The police manage the program, they vet the archers, and they also work with the Game Commission for the culling program. The meat is processed and donated to pantries. Mount Lebanon also started a program in 2018, and they have donated 13,700 pounds of venison to food pantries. The cost is not cheap, especially initially. However, if you look on my second page there, the damage to households in Mount Lebanon averaged $30 to $84 a year, and now the cost of the program, the deer culling program, is $18 per household. So it's a savings to the citizens, the tax-paying homeowner citizens in the community. The Fox Chapel Police Chief Stevens, with whom I spoke, said he'd be willing to sit down with any of you and talk about their program. Also, we have lots of resources that I've listed here, the Department of Agriculture, the PA Game Commission, and there are other agencies that can provide archers and sharpshooters, et cetera.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Greg, you're next. I'm sorry, I was distracted. Greg Swachik.
Thanks again, Mayor and Council. Greg Swachik, 648 Gramick. I did not collaborate with the previous speaker, but when I did run out of time last time, Mr. Brodnicki would recall I gave him a photo, and it was the deer in my yard, a herd. And I was going to conveniently have him pass it down as I spoke about the deer problem. We didn't collude, but it's interesting. She brought up a lot of my points, and I couldn't agree more that I really think something ought to be done. I believe it was Pine Township that reinitiated this year the same program as last year with police sharpshooters. I think last year I heard on TV they got 150 deer. Also, Pittsburgh City Parks were quoted on the news as saying if they don't do anything, they're just going to have weeds left in their parks. It's a real problem for them as well. And she did mention the Mount Lebanon deer call. You know, what's interesting, we have, I think, when I seeked something out at the old municipal building about vermin, we're allowed to shoot with any gun, discharge a firearm in Penn Hills bounds. A raccoon, vermin, small type animals, it's permissible. A police officer gave me a chapter and verse that shows that. But a deer, just because it's a large size, somehow gets away from a vermin characteristic. That's kind of funny to me, in a way. The last thing that I wanted to comment on, and you know, we can revisit this, but the best way for me to explain this is I'm concerned about the integrity of the Penn Hills boundary as it crosses Rodi Road and proceeds through Churchill by the green space, and initially where we're going to plant trees at the other end of Rodi. I just want to make it clear who's responsible, police-wise, whatever, if there's something happens. There could be an ambiguity there. It may be okay, but I'd like a final disposition statement from the government that, you know, it is okay as it is, but how is it? This has been undefined. We're defined from Monroeville to Rodi, but not from Rodi toward the western terminus. So far, I brought this up 2 times. In July, and the manager, I think, got the concept. His quote was, "I will look into that," end quote. Then in August, I brought it up again. His quote was, "I am going to get back to you with the question that you have." I just reviewed these videos today, and those are indeed the quotes. So I'm not looking again for a comment tonight. I said that in previous things. But many months went by. I'll let it speak for itself. And one last thing, Mayor. I think it was a previous councilman who I think was pushing something, and you as a council were not taking action. For whatever reason. I'm sure you had legitimate reasons. I mean, for real. I believe that.
Please conclude.
Okay. And you said in a kind way, what does that tell you? In other words, we're not going to do what you're suggesting. But for me, what it tells me is that I did not have a responsive government to give me a verbal disposition either way. Silence doesn't tell me anything. Thank you.
May I get a motion for item 9A?
Mayor, I'll make a motion to appoint Martin Wetmore to the Penn Hills Traffic Safety Committee for a 4-year term beginning November 22nd, 2022.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. May I get a second?
Second.
Thank you, Councilman Brodnicki. Any comment from the public? Any comment from council? I would like to say that I'm very, very proud to appoint Mr. Wetmore to the Traffic Safety Committee. I know that he is a longtime resident. He's very conscientious, and he has been recommended by many fine individuals. And so I'm very, very proud and happy to have the appointment and get the approval from council. Roll call, please.
Deputy Mayor Pecora?
Yes.
Mayor Calabrese?
Yes.
Councilor Fascio?
Yes.
Councilman Brodnicki?
Yes.
Congratulations on your appointment.
Congratulations and welcome aboard, Mr. Wetmore. May I get a motion for item 9B, please?
Mayor,
Yes, Councilor Fascio.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the sale and disposition of municipal vehicles totaling $39,300.
Thank you. May I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any comment from the public? Any comment from council? Roll call, please.
Deputy Mayor Pecora?
Yes.
Mayor Calabrese?
Yes.
Councilor Fascio?
Yes.
Councilman Brodnicki?
Yes.
Item 9B approved.
May I please get a motion for item 10A?
Mayor Calabrese?
Yes, Council.
I'd like to make a motion, we approve Resolution 2022-70, awarding a demolition contract to Davis Demolition for a total of $28,400 for 2 commercial structures.
Thank you. May I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any comment from the public? Any comment from council? Roll call, please.
Mayor Calabrese?
Yes.
Councilor Fascio?
Yes.
Councilman Brodnicki?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Pecora?
Yes.
Item 10A approved.
May I get a motion for item 10B?
Mayor Calabrese?
Yes, Councilman Brodnicki.
I'd like to make a motion, we approve Resolution 2022-71, approving a minor budget amendment to the Community Development Block Grant Budget for fiscal year 2020 and 2021.
Thank you. May I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any comment from the public? Any comment from council? Roll call, please.
Councilor Fascio?
Yes.
Councilman Brodnicki?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Pecora?
Yes.
Mayor Calabrese?
Yes.
Item 10B approved.
May I get a motion for item 10C, please?
Mayor,
Yes, Councilor Fascio.
I'd like to make a motion to approve Resolution 2022-72, approving the fiscal year 2020 Home Consortium grant amount of $125,851 and authorizing participation in the Allegheny County Home Consortium Program for the administration of homebuyer assistance funds.
Thank you. May I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any comment from the public? Any comment from council? Roll call, please.
Councilman Brodnicki?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Pecora?
Yes.
Mayor Calabrese?
Yes.
Councilor Fascio?
Yes.
Item 10C approved.
May I get a motion for item 10D?
Mayor Calabrese?
Yes, Councilman Brodnicki.
I'd like to make a motion, we approve Resolution 2022-74, approving the acquisition and subsequent disposition of vacant property located at 2522 Main Street in accordance with the Allegheny County Vacant Property Recovery Program.
Thank you. May I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any comment from the public? Any comment from council? I would like to just note that as you watch each council meeting, you'll see that we keep moving along with these. So this is an example of the things that I'm talking about. We have this huge to-do list, and although sometimes it feels like we may not be working fast enough, the bottom line is we keep checking each of these items off. So, and I think that's the definition of success. You set the goal and you just progressively realize that goal. So every council meeting, when you see us check these off, know that we're moving further and further towards our goals. Any further comment from council? Roll call, please.
Deputy Mayor Pecora?
Yes.
Mayor Calabrese?
Yes.
Councilor Fascio?
Yes.
Councilman Brodnicki?
Yes.
Item 10D approved.
May I get a motion for item 10E?
Mayor Calabrese?
Yes, Councilman Brodnicki.
I'd like to make a motion, we approve Resolution 2022-75, awarding a contract to Sports and Recreation Associates for the Penn Hills Universal Park ADA Development Project for the total amount of $317,830.
Thank you. May I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any comment from the public? Any comment from council? I would like to say that we, when you take a look at Penn Hills, we are so large. We've got close to 30 neighborhoods. I say that all the time, but I have to keep bringing that home for us. And we have, I'm very, very proud of the parks that we have. I'm proud of the maintenance, the upkeep, the changes, and again, these are things that take time. You have to understand, we set these goals and we have to move forward with them. If you'll recall, we received a grant to make one of our parks, it was close to a $250,000 grant to make one of our parks ADA compliant. I'm very proud of that. Probably close to a year ago or so, I talked with the skaters in our skate park and we asked them, what do you want to have? How can we improve our parks? If I look at the skate park, first of all, I'm like, wow, I would really love to do that. But I can tell you that my own kids have been in the skate park and have enjoyed it as they were growing up. And I probably would say, oh, let's put a coat of paint here and there. One of the first things they said was, do not put whatever kind of paint you think goes on there because it makes it dangerous. So we went directly to the source and said, tell us what it is, what do you need? Because just because we're elected officials, by no means do we know what is needed or how to improve things. So we really do go out to the community and we ask the people who use those facilities. I would love to skateboard, but I don't think I should be using the other parks where it's not so dangerous. So the point is, we are very conscientious, we're very aware of our parks, and we're moving forward. Roll call, please.
Deputy Mayor Pecora?
Yes.
Mayor Calabrese?
Yes.
Councilor Fascio?
Yes.
Councilman Brodnicki?
Yes.
Item 10E approved.
May I get a motion for item 10F?
Mayor,
Yes, Councilor Fascio.
I'd like to make a motion to approve Resolution 2022-76, approving change order 1 in the amount of $200,000 for Felino Construction Incorporated.
Thank you. May I get a second?
Second.
Any comment from the public?
Thank you, Mayor. Greg Swatchik, 648 Gramick. I don't know if it's how to begin this, but I just want to point out that item F is different than it was on the internet version. And the internet version, it's approved resolution adopting the 2030 implementable comprehensive plan, and now F is as you read it. So maybe the clarity can be given for that, and then also the internet has a G, so F's not the last one, but now it is. So maybe just for clarity purposes, we can capture that for the record.
Yeah. Mr. Swatchik, the agenda was updated and subsequently republished. There was also Resolution 73, you'll notice, doesn't appear on here. It had to be withdrawn because of a requirement that HUD had. So the agenda was republished on Thursday. That was that change. I'm not sure I understand your question. All I can say is that the agenda was published a week in advance, and then a few days later it was posted again because of subsequent changes. Yes, we do it all the time.
We had to pull the one item because you have to publish in the newspaper, and the Post-Gazette's on strike. Any further public comment? Any comment from council? Roll call, please.
Mayor Calabrese,
Yes.
Councilor Fascio,
Yes.
Councilman Brodnicki,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Pecora.
Yes.
Item 10F approved.
Deputy Mayor, any comments?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. First of all, I'd like to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving. Also, I'd like to tell you that Light Up Night is on the 1st of December, okay, from 6 to 7:30. I hope you can attend, with your families or your kids. It'll be great. And that's all I have to say. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Councilor Fascio, any comments?
No, thank you.
Councilman Brodnicki, any comments?
In the past few weeks, I've attended 3 meetings from the CDC. They're having a survey through Penn Hills as far as their needs, and I'm just really interested to see what it comes out of, what kind of information. It looked pretty good, though, so far.
Thank you. I would like to note that the meetings that Councilman Brodnicki is referring to, part of that was, it's being funded by the municipality. We had given them a grant for close to $90,000 to conduct this survey. It's wonderful to see them out there doing that work, because often when you get grants, you need to have the data. So that was part of the money the stimulus money that we used to get that. And sometimes you'll notice that whenever we talk about projects that are being done, it's through the grants that we're getting, whether it's a federal grant, a state grant, or whatever it may be. You need to have that data. So I think that was a prudent use of the money. When we saw the budget hearing this evening, I never thought that I would get excited about a sewer system before I became mayor. But that's one of those things that we don't think about. It's underground. But when we attend these, I have to attend, and council, we often attend different conferences, and we talk with other municipalities throughout Western Pennsylvania. Truly, we have one of the best sewer systems in all of the county. Others have, it's coming down the pike, they're going to have to do that. You'll notice one of the things, or maybe you won't notice, so I'm going to have to bring this up to you. One of the things that is never said at our council meetings, but it is said elsewhere, and this is a huge issue, for example, in Swissvale, the residents are constantly complaining about raw sewage coming up into their homes. We don't think about that because that's not something that is an everyday occurrence for us. So that's really not just an inconvenience. That's a public health issue. So that was when the stimulus money came down the pike. That was one of the first items that there was no issue. We all knew that there was no dispute that you could use the money in that manner. So we did that. That's a public health issue. I'm very happy to see that we're probably going to see a huge savings in police overtime, but not just because of the financial aspect of it or the economic impact, but because when you see that sort of overtime and you look at the real human cost, what that is that means police officers are literally working overtime. That's not good for them. That's not good for us. We don't want to have all this overtime. So I'm happy to see that we're probably going to have a savings, but that savings, again, as I say, doesn't just reflect financial impact. It also reflects the everyday life of the police officer. I met with the firefighters a few weeks ago. I see many of you here, and thank you so much for your service. So that as we do these budget talks, we're certainly conscientious of all of our public safety issues. when we look at those pie charts, it sort of seems kind of boring maybe, but when you translate it into everyday, the impact of us, it's pretty powerful when you look at that chart and you look at what surrounds us. Penn Hills has 75% home ownership. That's really a huge number. The impact of that is not just in the real estate taxes, but that's pretty awesome to see that that's where we have a pretty high tax collection rate. And that also means that we're neighbors, and we are your neighbors too. So when you look at that level of home ownership, that also reflects stability. We're happy to have renters here, no doubt about it, but that also then translates into the wage taxes, because these are working families that are owning their homes, and this is our base. We're broadening our base. And that's what our municipality is. We are not Monroeville. We are not, for example, Lawrenceville. Our base is people and homeowners, and we're trying to fill each and every home. And we want new development here. We want to fill those homes. And so part of the things that we do are, the infrastructure is really important. And our entranceways are important. And so I was really, really proud last week, and I see Kathy Rayborn here. We needed about 24 volunteers. I think we had about 60. So when you look at phase 1 of Rodi Road, we got the grant from Tree Vitalize Pittsburgh. 13 trees were planted. There will be a second phase in the spring. We are working on sidewalks. Becky Finalotto talked about that. Believe it or not, sidewalks, you would think everybody would be yay in favor of them, right? We have offered grants to some in various places. We're not giving up, but just let me say that we have gone to some businesses or some residences and said, hey, we have a grant to put a sidewalk in. And much to my surprise, many people don't want them. They don't want to shovel snow, even though it's no cost. But we're not done with that. So it's just really, I think, really encouraging to see the budget process here. I will say this, when COVID hit and we did our budget, and thank you so much, Sherry, we did not count on any stimulus money for 2022. We didn't count on any money whatsoever. And yet we did a budget for 1 year, presuming there would be no money other than the revenue that came from our residents. The city of Pittsburgh only did a 6-month budget. They had no confidence to do a year budget. And then fast forward to this year, I'm very, very proud of our administrative staff. We have professionals. I'm proud that council worked. We really work hand in hand. We listen to the residents, we prioritize, and I think that the money was spent prudently, and I'm so excited to see that fund balance in the right direction, and I'm very happy to see our credit rating. So as we continue with these budget hearings, please continue to feel free to come and give us your ideas, because as I've said many times, we are elected officials, we're not experts, and so we need your input, and then we take that to the experts, and it's really, it's hand in hand that we work together. I wish each and every one of you, on behalf of the municipality, I wish each and every one of you and your family a very happy Thanksgiving. With that said, have a good evening, and this meeting is adjourned.
Hi, how you doing? Yes.